Welterweight division is now great again. Now Colby couldn't do it, all right? Colby could not do it, and none of these other guys could do it. Colby said he would do it, but he couldn't do it. But lots of these other guys did it. I'll tell you who did it. Carlos Prates. I'll tell you who else did it. Michael Morales. I'll tell you who else. Even Joaquin Buckley, Sean Brady, JDM, Ian Gary, Shavkat Rakhmonov. These guys, and even Bilal Muhammad even played his own part. These guys made their division great again. It made it fresh again. It made it interesting again. And I'm going to get into that right now because I just wanted to get this off my chest. I wanted to talk about this because nobody's really talking about how much improvement has been made to the welterweight division. All these other divisions right now, you go take a look. We have flyweight, okay? You go to flyweight, and then Alejandro Pantoja's at the top. Beat Brandon Moreno, beat Brandon Royval, beat Kai Kara France. Amir Albazi got beat by Brandon Moreno. Tatsuro Tara got beat by Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval. Messed up there. Um, Beat Steven Urseg, even though that was robbery, let's be honest, but whatever. Beat Alex Perez. And then all these up and comers are like top 10 and below. You know? It's like, I mean, I understand that Manel, Starboy Cap, and Tatsuro Taira are prospects, kind of, but I mean, what happens if they get fraud checked? Then what? I mean, Tatsuro Taira did get a little fraud checked, but you know, the only hope right now is Kaya Sakura. So right now it's kind of dead. Bantamweight's interesting. It is. It genuinely is one of the top three most interesting right now. You know, Marab's at the top, but Umar has a chance. I understand that he beat Suga and Piotr, but I mean, you know, Davison Figueiredo, Song Yadong, um, a lot of these guys can make their way to the top and face Marab again. It's actually one of the more interesting weight classes right now because even though Marab, yes, he has beaten a few of the top good guys, there is some new up and comers, and they do pose some interesting threats, especially when Marab gets older. And Umar's the biggest one right there. So that one's kind of interesting. Now let's move to featherweight. Now there are a lot of contenders here, right? However, I mean, do we really expect Diego Lopez, Movsar Evloev, Alexander Volkanovski, Funkmaster Sterling? Do we really expect any of these guys to beat him? We know that Brian Ortega, Josh Emmett, Yair Rodriguez, Arnold Allen is probably not going to win, so let's just count those out. Although Arnold might have a better chance than people think, I actually think that the most likely option is probably Movsar. He's probably the biggest threat just because the grappling isn't that tested aside from, you know, where is he? Wow, number 15 now. Bryce Mitchell. I understand this is Tapology, but wow, the fall from grace. He used to be like top 9, top 8. Anyways, yeah, I mean, Diego Lopez or Movsar Evlov, it's one of them two. Volkanovski, he's very skillful, but I mean, 36, two KOs. Tapori is getting better. He knows how to beat Volk. I mean, come on. Funkmaster, he's probably just going to get KO'd in one or two. Um, he's going to be holding on for dear life, you know? And so that one's kind of, I mean, there's some interesting contenders, but looking at how darn good Ilia Topuria is just makes it like much less interesting because most of these other guys just can't compete. Lightweight, the only guy that can really compete right now is Armin. Honestly, Dustin Poirier beat Justin Gaethje, beat by um, Max Holloway. Gamrot lost. Moicano is not going to be fighting for the title anytime soon. Armin's the only one right now. Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler are fighting. You know, Dan Hooker and Renato might fight each other. There's just not a real option for a pick against Islam except Arman Sarukian. So Islam Makashev's probably going to rule that division as well. Welterweight I'll get into. But middleweight is probably either the first or second most interesting right now. This is crazy. Okay. I don't know who's doing this Tapology rankings. I'm not fully sure how it works, but this is stupid. What? Okay, Hamzat, yes, he is impressive, no doubt. But Hamzat, I mean, Drake is literally beat Israel Adesanya. So why is he even ahead of Sean Strickland as well? I don't get it. Sean Strickland beat him. Like, what? Um, but all these other guys, it's like, okay, there's a lot of interesting up and comers in this division as well. But I mean, do we really expect any of these contenders, except for maybe Baralho, to have a chance against Dricus or Hamzat? I don't know. Right now it's just Dricus and Hamzat, and most people are picking Hamzat. So even still, not too interesting. And Magomed and Pereira are the only two ones interesting in light heavyweight right now, let's be honest. Especially since Krylov and Mirzakhanov pulled out of the fight. One of them two pulled out. I think it was Azmat Mirzakhanov. And, the one that we're relying on after Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira fight is Carlos Ulberg. And then it's Bogdan Gushkov. I mean, I don't think we expect him to win a title. And then it's, Dominic Reyes. I'm Dominic Reyes. I remember that's a bedtime MMA quote. And then heavyweight, I mean, come on, let's be honest, this one's super dead right now. I mean, the Tapology fans even have Francis Ngannou at the top. When Francis is at the top and he's fighting at PFL, you know that there's something fishy going on right now with the supposed champion in John Bones Jones. Or John Duck Jones, if we're being honest. So, we look at all those divisions, and then we go back to welterweight. And then Belal Muhammad just won the championship. And most of the guys that he beat are guys that other people beat or are down the hill or, they're not prospects. All these guys that are up and coming in welterweight aren't beaten by the champion. So it's not like it's not interesting. You have Ian Gary not challenged the champion. Shafkat hasn't challenged the champion. JDM, same thing. Sean Brady, same thing. Buckley, same thing. 3 to 7, all guys that haven't fought Belal Muhammad. And even Jeff Neal, I understand he's not a prospect, and he's probably not going to be able to fight Belal Muhammad if he stays the champion. But he has won against Belal Muhammad. So it's like the guys right now that Belal Muhammad has wins over is Leon Edwards, which is a great win. But then it's Gilbert Burns, good win. Wonderboy, good win. And then the rest of these guys are just kind of falling off. A lot of these guys that he has wins over are just kind of out of there. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying that like a bad thing. And I'm not saying that to discredit Belal Muhammad, right? Like, I mean, look at his win streak right now. It's insane. He's definitely one of the greatest welterweights of all time. Now, he doesn't touch Kamaru Usman and GSP's legacy quite yet, but maybe 2 more wins, Then it would actually be a conversation, a really good conversation for him as well. Like if he beats Shafkat, that's a really good conversation now, because Shafkat's the boogeyman, and these guys aren't necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? These guys are contenders. They are contenders, but they're not really prospects anymore. Now that they are contenders, is what I'm saying. And you look at Carlos Prates, right? Carlos Prates is why I made this video, because just last weekend he beat Neil Magny, right? And Neil Magny and Vicente Luque were guys that were considered in the top 15. So then you look at these guys, right, who beat guys that were established names, like Vicente Luque and Neil Magny. These guys were established names within the top 15, even top 10 at some point, right? And then you see that these guys are beating them. And then even as far as top 5, Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, these guys were once top contenders, okay? And then you see that these guys are getting onto 3 loss streaks, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 win, 1 loss, right? That type of stuff. And then Stephen Thompson, he was also a title contender. These guys, right? It's like the division's super competitive now. Now there are a ton of room for contenders, and these guys are even fighting each other now, like Ian Gary and Joaquin Buckley, Jack Della Maddalena was called out by Colby Covington. People were saying, oh, well, he's actually not actually serious about the Jack Della Maddalena fight. I'm, of course, referring to Colby Covington. And I just have to say, I feel like he's genuine about that, okay? his tone about that fight is much more different than these other guys. He only talked about these other guys for a very short amount of time. When he was talking to the guy on Submission Radio, he actually seemed very serious about that fight. And then, even these guys, Stephen Thompson, he gave the new up-and-comer Joaquin Buckley a chance. These new guys are giving the old heads a chance. Or I should say the other way around. These old heads are giving the new guys a chance. And this is what you love to see from the division, okay? A division that's truly thriving now more than ever. To the lightweight division, for example, which everybody says has these great contenders. And, even for bantamweight, usually people are talking about always having great contenders. And right now, there's a lot more guys that we can say, oh, I actually think this guy would beat this guy, and this guy could beat that guy. There's a lot more hot takes, a lot more popular opinions, a lot more interest now more than ever with this division that I'm seeing. And not enough people are talking about it, right? Michael Morales, people are sleeping on him. I understand he's an undefeated prospect, and, people are talking, but not enough, Carlos Prates. These guys are just going through these old guys, and even these old heads are like giving each other some opportunities who haven't fought in a while. Like Vicente Luque is giving Nick Diaz a chance, right? He hasn't fought in forever, and he's giving him a chance at the rankings. The UFC are still putting Luque at number 14. It's like these guys are fighting, and a lot of these guys that are fighting are interesting prospects. Like even the Ox fighter, right? Chaos Williams, even though he's kind of like Colby Covington, where he's a one fight every year type of guy, although he has 2 fights in 2021 and 2020, he's been a fighting guy, and he's been like a winning guy, you know what I mean? He's a contender. He's just outside the top 20, top 25, top 15. He could be challenging for the rankings as well. It's just that he doesn't fight quite enough. And you look at Brian Battle, for example, as well. He's fighting, like, he's a huge prospect right now. He's got a huge name. You look at his performances, his last 2 performances, like, he's a great talker now. Everybody knows him from the French fight, and the one before that where he called out his opponent for faking an eye poke because he knew he was losing. And then Randy Brown, this guy, he's also accepting Brian Battle when he was offered a much easier fight before that. I forget who, but he was offered an easier fight, and then he accepted Brian Battle. He's also a good contender. He's number 15 in Tapology, but, on the UFC page, he's like just outside of the top 15. He's like number 16 or something. He's some guy that we could look out for as a just outside the rankings prospect as well. Like, there's a lot of these guys that are just outside the rankings that are making a name for themselves now, more than ever. And, I've seen a ton of videos talking about, oh, well, I don't know, maybe Ian has a chance, maybe Sean Brady has a chance, maybe JDM has a chance, maybe Buckley has a chance, I personally think that Carlos Prates has a very good chance and a slight favorite, in my opinion, against JDM, right? But people would say that's a hot take, maybe. And they wouldn't even consider that a year ago when JDM was coming off of that brutal win against Gilbert Burns, right? Gilbert Burns was talked about as a great contender. People are saying, oh, you can't doubt him out on this one. You can't doubt him out on the Sean Brady one. And even I was one of those guys, right? But now look at him. 3-fight loss streak, These up-and-comers are making a name for themselves. These contenders, these undefeated prospects. Even if they're not undefeated, they're undefeated in the UFC. And even guys who aren't undefeated in the UFC, like Michael Venom Page, he still has a chance to make a name, to beat some good guys, get a name for himself, maybe even a championship contender fight. I definitely don't think he'd win the championship, but I mean, with his striking style, if they set him up just right, I mean, you saw that they gave him Ian Gary, and he wasn't necessarily deserving of that. If I'm being completely honest, Ian Gary was, I believe, number 7 or something at that time, and he might still be on the official UFC website. So, I mean, he was number 14 or something. Wasn't necessarily deserving. But, if they put him right against some good strikers, it's like nobody wants to stand with him. Ian Gary took him to the ground, and that's how he won the fight, first and third round. And then Bilal Muhammad, like, he's way more interesting than Leon Edwards. Like, all he wants is to be a UFC champion, right? That's it. And he wants to fight once every year, once every 16 months, or once every 8 months, something like that. You know, he's not really a talker like Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad is going at Kamaru Usman and all that. And Kamaru Usman, he's having talks with Jack Della Maddalena. He's having talks with Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's always posting online. Colby Covington's posting online. People are critiquing Colby Covington for calling out all these names. Even guys like Themba Gorimbo at rank number, 37? That's last time I checked. He was 37. People are calling him out, but it's like, this is what should be happening. And I don't think that that's an actual call out. I think he actually wants, judging off of the tone and all that, I think he actually wants JDM. I think he's being serious about that one, right? And then, Kamaru Usman's calling out everyone under the sun. Shavkat Rakhmonov saying, I'm ready, I'm hungry, I'm wanting to fight anyone. Like, these guys want to fight each other. And I don't think it's all talk anymore. Because, you'd see that with people who are just all talk, like, they'd be sitting out for like 2 years. But now it's like these guys are putting out dates. Colby Covington's putting out Miami. He's saying Miami, and I think he's being serious about this. And then, last but not least, I want to point out, like, all these guys, even just outside of people are now talking about Brian Battle and Chaos Williams, right? They're talking about Renat, Nicholas Dalby. They're talking about Randy Brown, even, they're talking about these guys as contenders or prospects to become contenders. But people forget, man. I know that that's a very overused saying now, since the guru has said it far too much, but people forget, man. We have Gabriel Bonfirm, we have, Uros Medic, Mike Malott, even though he's not looking too great, but still, you have Themba Gorimbo, he's looking pretty good. You have Charles Radke, Carlos Leal. I know he's a drug cheat, but still. I mean, come on, look at his back, look at the spots on him. You have a ton of these good guys. So many talented prospects that are probably going to make the rankings as well. It's like, I can't help but just make this video because nobody is talking about how good the division's looking right now. I mean, it's never looked better, I think. This is probably the best it's ever looked. And lots of these guys are getting finishes, KOs, submissions. Like, when have you ever seen a time with this many skilled submissions, KOs, all that? You haven't seen that in a long time. You haven't seen this, Lots of decisions in the past 2 years, 3 years. And it's not like that anymore. And I'm just saying, like, I'm seeing a lot of these new talented prospects, and nobody's making a video on this, really. None of the big guys, none of the big names of the MMA sphere on YouTube. So I just wanted to talk about this. This is crazy. Like, how much the division has changed for 1-2 years ago. Even just 1 year ago. Even just 8 months ago. Like, none of these guys were in the top 15. And the UFC official rankings also has it a little different as well. They have... Well, okay, I don't know if I should say that it's any better, though, because Vicente Luque is out of the top 15, and I think that makes sense. But, the UFC division the UFC welterweight division is looking very nice, and I don't know if I could say it's been better in any other time in history. Genuinely. Lots of prospects, lots of conversations to be had, and, these guys are active. Bilal Muhammad wanted to fight in UFC 310. Unfortunately, he won't be able to. Whether the injury is real or fake, I think it's real, but the point is, he wanted to fight there. He wanted to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov, the boogeyman. And if he got that, that would have been great for his legacy. So, let's give these guys credit. They're wanting to fight. People are talking about all these other divisions, but never giving welterweight the credit anymore. They're saying it's mid, Like, put some credit on the division, So, that's just one thing I wanted to rant about. People aren't talking about how great this division is right now. And I wanted to give it its flowers before we see too much change, before we see all these prospects fight each other and lose, and now it's, who's going to fight this and who's going to fight that, like, this guy's coming off a loss and this guy's coming off a loss. We just got to appreciate this time because it's never looked better. So I hope that you appreciate this content. My UFC 309 predictions is coming out soon. Stay tuned for that. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you comment, okay? This is Masked MMA, okay? Mask of MMA is my Tapology. Make sure you check this out. Make sure you check all this stuff out that I've been doing. Check out my old YouTube videos. Check out my new ones. Make sure to check out all my stuff